Hi, I'm Tricia at Club Scrap, and you've arrived at the Sunny Fields Page Kit Workshop. This was a special release from Club Scrap, and if you're looking for the printable instructions, you can find them on our website at clubscrap.com. Go to the tab that says Resources, then Instructions, Special Release Kits, Sunny Fields. Let's get started. I have my instructions here. Now you don't really need to print them. I'll be guiding you every step of the way as we trim 8 sheets of paper plus those cut-aparts. And here is my kit. I'm going to set aside the ribbon, these little sunflower die cuts and the sunflower charms. And the first thing I really like to do is put the paper into the order we'll be trimming it. That allows for smooth sailing later. When you do sort the paper, I advise that you keep the paper upright rather than flat on your work surface. It's just a little easier to sort through it. We've got 16 sheets plus 2 sheets of cut-aparts here, so it's quite a bit of paper. The first sheet I want you to find is the large sunflowers print. So you can tell this is the small, this is the large. Okay, so grab one of these and put it face down on the base of your trimmer, followed by one sheet of the small sunflower print. Put that face down. And then next up, we're looking for 2 pieces of the dark brown. So that's going to be a really deep brown. In fact, in some of the pictures I was taking of the kit, it almost looked black, but it's a dark brown. And then we'll reach for 2 sheets of the dark aqua. So that one, when you look at it, it's going to have a linen-like texture on it. I'm just going to put that linen side down because later on we'll flip that stack of paper over. So again, 2 sheets of dark aqua. Then 1 piece of the light brown that kind of has a little bit of a craft color to it. And again, just 1 piece of that at this time. And then finally 1 sheet of the yellow. It's just a nice soft yellow, so pretty. On the back of your stack, likely, and facing away from you, you're probably going to find your cut-aparts. There are 2 of them. The first I want you to locate has this strip of sunflowers on it. I'm going to put that face down. And then this one has the advice from a sunflower on it. So we'll put that face down next. Then we'll take the remaining small sunflowers print face down, and then the remaining light brown will be next. Search for 2 sheets of this beautiful soft gray color. I just love that. It's really, really pretty. 2 sheets of that, and then 2 sheets of the light aqua. We're getting down there now. 1 large sunflower print face down, and then the remaining yellow plain. That should exhaust all of the paper that you have in your stack. We're going to flip back over to the large sunflower print. Now, as I trim, I like to keep my untrimmed paper to my left, my instructions to my right, if you happen to have them. It's just kind of how I set up my workspace. And then of course I have my guillotine trimmer in the middle. You can see this is a very well-loved trimmer. Been using it for a long, long time. A guillotine style trimmer is really ideal for this method. So when I place this in my trimmer, I'm going to do it so that this stem is like horizontal and branching out this way over to that large sunflower. I mean, it really doesn't matter big time how this is situated, but this is just how I did it. And we're going to cut this at 8 3/4. So if you're newer to the trimmer, I always like to do a little trimmer primer. So this is 8, and then we're going to go left 3 columns to 8 3/4. So 8, 8 1/4, 8 1/2, 8 3/4. So you're moving this paper toward the 9. That seems to be a very common initial mistake, is just moving the wrong direction. So 8 3/4. Make sure your paper is aligned with this guide up here at the top. Then you push down on the clear bar and slice. And then we're going to slide this paper down to 5 1/2 inches. So 5, and you're going to go halfway to the 6 to make it 5 1/2. Now to stay organized, I'm going to grab my accordion pocket file and place the lip of this underneath my trimmer base so that I can file these pieces into the spot where they're going to be used later on. So this really large piece left in my trimmer base is used in layout 7 and 8. So when I file it, I'm going to file it just kind of winging out to the side here like so I can still see the pocket number on the left. And then we're going to take 2 of these other strips. They are the same size, and those are going to be placed at an angle again in pocket 5 and 6. Okay, we're going to take the small sunflower print. I don't really think I have a specific way that you need to cut this. I'll just do what feels right side up, I guess. We're going to trim this at 11 1/2. 8.5. I was pushing down on that clear bar. 6 3/4. Now the piece in your trimmer, rotate it so it's horizontal and trim at 11.5. This is used in layout 3 and 4, so I'll just put it in there. It's kind of big, but we'll manage. And then there is this small strip that fell from the end. We're not going to use that, so I'll set it aside. Then you have another long strip. This one is 1 3/4 by 12. We're going to trim this at 11.5 also, and you'll see why later on. This is used in 3 and 4 as well. And once again, we've created a small scrap. Set that one aside for, circular filing. And then this somewhat wide piece is used in pocket 1 and 2. And this really little strip here also 1 and 2. And that's it for our small sunflower print. Now take just one sheet of the dark brown. So you're going to see one in your trimmer, one to your left. And I just want a quick mention, if I'm going way too fast, adjust your playback speed in YouTube to 0.75 to slow me down until you feel comfortable going full speed ahead. All right, our first cut on this one sheet of dark brown is at 10 3/4. 9.5. Notice how I don't move the piece that I trimmed. I let it stay where it landed. That's a really good tip just to keep track of everything. So again, 9.5. And then 6 1/4. Rotate the 6 1/4 inch piece, cut at 11 1/4. 8.5. And 4 1/4. That last cut created 2 photo mats for us that measure 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. Obviously, that's for our 4 by 6 photos, or for nesting is really nice. So we're going to take these 2 pieces that are the same and place them in pocket 5 and 6. Then you have this little bit larger rectangle going into pocket 3 and 4. And then you have this narrow strip of dark brown that I did not use that you can set aside. Okay, our next strip here, 3 1/4 by 12 inches right now. We're going to cut it at 11, 8 1/4, 5.5, 2 3/4. And we now have 4 rectangles that are the same size for pockets 7 and 8. And then we have this little piece here I did not use. And then we have 2 long strips that remain. Those go in pocket 5 and 6. Take the other sheet of dark brown, and we're going to cut a bunch of really narrow strips. So we'll start at 11 3/4, 11.5, 11 1/4, 9 1/4, 7, boy, lots of cuts here, 7, and 4. Now rotate the 4-inch piece so it's horizontal and cut at 9.5 and 6. This 4 by 6 inch piece we just made, that goes in pocket 3 and 4. And then there are 2 other differing sized rectangles going into 5 and 6. The next piece, we're going to trim this one at 9.5, 6, and 3. The 2 squares you just made, those go in pocket 1 and 2. And then there are 2 other rectangles left over. Those both go in pocket 5 and 6. We're going to trim this next strip. This one's going to be at 9 3/4, 6.5, 3 1/4. The piece in your trimmer goes in pocket 7 and 8. The next one that fell, 5 and 6. The next one that fell, 1 and 2. Then you have a little square, 3 and 4. So that was pretty well distributed. There's a wide piece here, 7 and 8. And then you have 3 of these really little strips left over. 2 of them go in 7 and 8, and the last little one, 1 and 2. We're moving on to the dark aqua, and once again we're going to create a ton of those little narrow strips, just like we did with the dark brown. So again, make sure you just have the one sheet of the dark aqua and the other is sitting to your left. Let's trim this one at 11 3/4. Leave those pieces pile up, then 11 1/2, 11 1/4, 11. Now go down to 9 3/4, 8 1/2, 4 1/4. Now the piece in your trimmer and the piece that just fell, they should be the same size. So I'm going to stack them neatly together and trim them at the same time at 6 1/4. And all 4 of these pieces, 2 are longer, 2 are shorter, they're all going to go in pockets 7 and 8. Then you have 2 strips that are the same width. Those are going to go in pocket 1 and 2. The remaining pieces, there should be 4 of these really little guys, they all go in pocket 3 and 4. No scraps from that piece. Let's take the remaining dark aqua. We're going to cut this one at 11 1/4. 10 1/2, and 6 1/4. Rotate this 6 1/4 inch piece and cut at 8 1/2 and 4 1/4. You've created 2 pieces the same size. Those both go in pocket 3 and 4. And then there's a rectangle that fell. We're going to just trim this at 6 and 3. That's going to give us 2 rectangles also for pocket 3 and 4, plus we've created a small little scrap. The long wide strip that remains, we'll trim this at 10 3/4, 9, and 6 1/4. The piece in your trimmer, pocket 3 and 4, and then you have 2 unequal rectangles that fell, 1 and 2, and there's a smaller rectangle here that I didn't use. Then you have 2 strips here, pocket 5 and 6. Here we are on the light brown. We're really getting there, getting to the end of the trimming phase. Let's start this one at 10 1/4, and then 6 1/4. Once again, we're going to make some photo mats out of this. Rotate and trim at 8 1/2. and 4 1/4. Every time we do these cuts, it's going to give us a couple of photo mats. These 2 mats that are the same, pocket 1 and 2. Once again, we'll take that rectangle and trim at 6 and 3, just like we did before. And both of these go in pocket 5 and 6. There is a tiny piece around here that fell. There it is. They can be pretty sneaky. That's a scrap. And then we have this wide piece. We're just going to cut it in half at 6. Both of these pieces go in pocket 1 and 2. And this wide strip that remains, 7 and 8. Zipping along here to the yellow. We'll trim this one at 10 1/4 and 6 1/4. Rotate and trim this at 8 1/2 and 4 1/4. Gee, feels like we've done this before. Both of these mats go in pocket 1 and 2. The rectangle, we're going to trim this again at 6. Do you sense a pattern here? And 3. Both of these pieces are used in layout 5 and 6. Then we have this long strip. We're going to cut it in half at 6 inches. These 2 pieces that fell, or that we created, and the one that is long, all 3 of them go in pockets 7 and 8. We've arrived at the Cutaparts, and before we can really get started, we need to remove the outer perimeter. And I did not talk about this in the written instructions, but this little piece of art right here floated down into a no-go zone. So what I'm going to try to do is guide you through salvaging this edge of this little mishap that we had here. I didn't salvage it on my finished pages just so that you know, it wouldn't be absolutely necessary, but the virtue of watching the video here is that I'm going to give you some tips. So first, what I want you to do is place this in the trimmer so that this Up with the Sun is on your right, and I'm going to just take off as much as I can. I'm shy of that little hash mark in the edge there. There's a little hash mark. I'm not going to cut right to the hash mark because I just can't really see the edge of the blade down here at the bottom for proper alignment. Then I'm going to rotate to the right, or clockwise, so that this darker brown circle is on my right. And I'm going to, now I can see the little cutting guide here on the edge, both at the top and bottom. I can see the edge of the blade that I'm looking for. I'm going to make that cut. Then I'm going to rotate so that the piece is now upside down and slice this. And then now I'm going to go back to kind of to where I started and check. I'm going to put this in at 12 inches here, and I should be able to clean up that initial cut that I made shy of those lines earlier. Okay. Then just bear with me, okay? I'm going to just slide this down. I have not yet cut this edge, and I'm going to trim this at 10.5, and then 9, 8, 7, and then down to 3.5. Now rotate this piece so it's horizontal and trim at 12, and place this piece in pocket 3 and 4. Again, I'm giving you modified instructions, okay? Now on this next strip, I just want you to cut at 7 and 3.5. This circle goes in pocket 7 and 8, and the other one, pocket 3 and 4. All of these pieces are used in layout 7 and 8. Take the next 2 strips, stack them neatly together, and trim them at 12. They both go in pocket 5 and 6. On this next pair of strips, stack them neatly together and trim them at 12, and place them in pockets 7 and 8. You do have these little sniglets that we got rid of, so I'm going to dispose of those and grab the second sheet of Cutaparts. Once again, I'm just going to trim some of this waste off the edge here, and then when I rotate the paper, hopefully I can see where that line meets the edge of the blade, and I can. And then I'll rotate again and get this edge cleaned up. And then finally this edge here. One more cut along the initial, clean up here. Yeah, that looks great. All right, now I'll get rid of all my sniglets. And we're going to begin now with the narrow strips here on the right. The first cut is at 11, and then 10, 9.5, 9, then slide it down to 7, and lastly 4. Rotate the 4-inch piece so that the narrow piece is on your right, cut at 10.5, 8.5, and 6. Take the 6-inch piece, place it in pocket 5 and 6, and then this Forever Chasing the Sun, 1 and 2. Now here we have these words, and I fussy cut mine, but again, just veering off the instructions just a little bit, I'm just going to separate these by trimming on the nearest inch. So trim at 3, 2, and we'll fussy cut these later, and 1. So Bloom and Grow are used in layouts 3 and 4, and then Shine and Love are used in pocket 1 and 2. Then we've got Ready, Set, Grow. That piece is used in pocket 1 and 2. This one, place the strip in so the tags are on your right, and we'll cut at 10, 8, and 6. I'll grab some scissors here, and I'm just gonna do a real rough cut to separate the two sets of flowers. You can see a little glow line around the edges. I'm going to place the trio of sunflowers in pocket 7 and 8, and then the single in 3 and 4. The grayish toned journaling prompt, 5 and 6. The yellow goes in 1 and 2. And I'll just quick show you a trick to turn these into tags relatively quickly. Sometimes I like to use my trimmer, so I bring the blade down real close to the edge of that tag so I can line up the border so it matches the other borders on the sides. And now I've just created a tag. I've turned a rectangle into a tag, just snip, snip. You can use scissors or a ruler and craft knife, as I usually do with my initial page prototypes. So this one goes in pocket 7 and 8. Then we have this larger strip here for pocket 3 and 4. The two little titles, 5 and 6. And then we have these sweet little borders going in 1 and 2. I have my little triangles that I lobbed off. I'm going to throw those out. And that concludes the trimming phase. I'm going to just support this, take it off my trimmer, and then now it needs to lay on its back while I get rid of my trimmer. So the nice part about this method is that all of the pieces required for all 8 pages are trimmed and ready to go. They're organized so you don't have a whole chaotic mess to work through. If you liked that Accordion Pocket File system and you didn't have the pocket file, there are 3 ways that you can get it. Number 1, you can actually buy a pre-made one. I do have an art teacher here in my area who just makes them by hand for you. That's available as a pre-made accordion pocket file. Then you can also buy a kit that comes with printed instructions and a video workshop so that you can make your own accordion pocket file, or you can just have access to the video to make one for yourself with supplies that you have at home. I'll leave a link below in the video description to all 3 of those options if you like the idea of staying organized with me using that accordion pocket file. So I still have all of these unused papers here, right? And I'm going to take the entire stack, all of them, all of the pieces not trimmed, and I'm going to place this just to the left of the center of my workspace, the entire pile. Then I'm going to grab the top sheet and just slide it over to the right. And what that reveals for me now is the base of layouts 7 and 8, not 1 and 2. We're going to go back to layout 7 and 8. And that way we're going to take everything out of the pockets labeled 7 and 8. And we're going to just sort of dry fit the pieces onto the layouts, and just to make sure everything's kind of in its right spot, and I'll talk over some finishing touches, but we're not going to stick anything down. Then we'll move to 5 and 6, 3 and 4, 1 and 2. So we're working backwards. That way, when we get to layout 1, everything will be in its place, and any corrections that need to be made can occur. And I think you're really going to like the system if you haven't tried it before. So right off the bat, I like to take the largest piece and just place it down, because that's typically the layering. And then above and below this piece going through the center of my layout, I'm going to be using 2 of those brown paper ribbons, as I call them, just to help transition between the color or the print and the base of the page. I really love that look. Then I have a wider strip that is yellow. That's going to go above, and that will be nested with the title Up with the Sun. And then down below this, I'm going to add Nothing But Fun. We did have this piece of sunflower cut apart here. And what I like about this is that Jacqueline, my amazing designer, she puts that little glow around the image so you're not stuck trying to fussy cut every petal of the sunflower. You can just cut along that glow line, and it's going to give this a really nice look, kind of like a sticker maybe. And when I was finished cutting this, I simply sponged some of our earth ink onto the edges of the sunflower. So if you have like a nice warm brown colored ink, I'll put a link below for my earth ink that I like to use. So here is my well-loved earth ink pad. So I just use a little sponge to apply the ink here, and look at that. It warms up the edge really nicely, and it's going to make a beautiful embellishment for my page. So that ended up being placed, like right about here. Now in your pile, you're going to find 2 sizes of that dark aqua. So the larger one goes on the left side of the page, kind of like this. And the smaller ones are going to go horizontally here. Then you're going to find 2 yellow mats that will nest with those larger ones. So if it doesn't nest, the math ain't mathin', just swap them out. This, I used a thin cutting die with a quilted edge to knock this out. You can also use scissors, that's totally fine. Again, using the ink to sponge the edges will hide any imperfections in your trimming. There's a rectangle that will nest with the journaling prompt here, and I clipped the corners of the brown nesting paper, punched a hole in the top, and threaded it with some of the light aqua ribbon all the way across the top of the page. I'll show you that soon. And then over here, I did thread some of the paper cord that we've included onto the top of the charm, and I just glued that right there. I used our bookbinding glue from a needle tipped applicator to add the charm, and it works like a charm. Now on the right side, I took this darker brown and nested it with the lighter brown, and then you do have 1, 2, 3, 4 little rectangles that are going to create a nice film strip style set of pictures. So if you have a ton of pictures, 1, 2, 3, 4, really nice, vertical or horizontal will be cropped to fit well into that space. Or you can just like run a single photo across both, however you want to do it. And then you have these bad boys. Now what you can do is trim them with scissors, or if you happen to have a postage edged scissors, you can remove them like so. Now my postage pattern doesn't go to the end, so sometimes you have to like realign the scissors to get all the way across. So I can just get this guy and then make my turn. And then after I was done with the postage edging, it's really quite fun. I have a link to a set of scissors that contains the postage edge, if you can find it just one at a time. I use this one a lot. This one's just called the stamp. And look how sweet that is. And then I can take my earth ink here and ink those edges, warms it up a little bit. And then when I get the rest of them trimmed out, they're all going to go in a line down this cute little strip here, and I'll show you that in a moment. I also added a bit of ribbon to each postage stamp. That really adds a lot too. So without further ado, let me show you these finished pages. We've got our lineup of postage stamps. Now each one of these was added with foam adhesive circles to give it a little bit of height. And I can leave a link to those foam adhesive circles also in the description below. But I just made like I trimmed a 2-inch piece of ribbon, folded it to make a loop, and then taped the loop to the back, added the foam adhesive, and then just put them in a row down the page. Isn't that sweet? And then I just made sure like aqua background, dark brown, gray, or taupe, whatever, and then the dark aqua. On the facing page, you can see the addition here of some of the rhinestone gems. Those were added last. In fact, I forgot to add them and I had to go back and add them. So just a little dab of bookbinding glue places the gem. This was adhered with our bookbinding glue. It's an amazing product, and you can see how this is secure here on the layout with the cord, the paper cord tied on top of the charm. Over here, after punching the hole, I looped the ribbon around, taped the ends to the back. I took a second piece of the yellow gingham, tied a knot into it, and then attached it to the top as a nice finishing touch there. Here you can see my die cut piece that I use one of my thin cutting dies. But again, if you need to use scissors, I recommend edging it with the earth ink just to cover those imperfections in the cuts. So that is layout 7 and 8. Set those pages aside, and what we're going to do is leave everything sit just like we have it. Next, I'll just take this little base paper of layout 7 and slide it on over so it sits on top of 8. And then I'm going to take this light brown piece, slide it over so it sits on top of page 7. And now I can see the base layouts for pages 5 and 6. So that's going to be right at the top of page 4, looking at these 2 pages. So that's like my answer key. And now let's assemble the puzzle. So I'll take everything out of the pocket, labeled 5 and 6. And I'll set my organizer aside, and let's see. I'm going to begin by placing my print right up here. And actually, I'm going to switch this to match. So I'm going to have one print up here, one print down here. And then you're going to find these longer brown strips to kind of form a bit of a reflecting a border situation. On top of those strips, we're going to add the cute little sunflower borders there. And we're going to continue on with more borders. We're adding a dark aqua on both sides. Everything reflects. And then we have our title. So, advice from a sunflower: be bright, sunny, and positive. And then spread seeds of happiness, rise, shine, and hold your head high. Okay, look for two larger brown photo mats. One will go center over here, the other left over here. And then you've got a cut-apart that's going to nest with that. Now over on the right side, we're going to take two yellow rectangles and then two light brown rectangles. That kind of rounds things out over here. There's a whole series of brown rectangles. If you find the one that nests with a journaling prompt, that eliminates one of them. That's going to go right over here. What I'm left with are these 4 random different size pieces. Let's take the largest one and then the second largest one. Those are going to go horizontally and then vertically. Then you have the smallest one, it's going to go here, and the longer one right here. So I spent a fair amount of time trying to figure out a fun way to puzzle this to add a little balance and interest to this area. I love how it turned out. Then you're going to cut one of these in half. Half of the sunflower is going to go here. The other half is going to go down over here. So that really makes a nice finishing touch. We'll be using another ribbon-topped charm here. I used the cord to tie a little bow on the top of this. And I also used some of the paper cord along this border. So once everything was glued down this far, I took the nozzle of my needle-tipped glue applicator, I ran it across the bottom, and then I placed the cord on top of the line of glue. And then I just let it sit there until it dried. I just made sure it was pushed down and staying, which it does. It really works nicely. And then I just trimmed off the edges. So let me show that to you on that finished page. I did it on both sides. So here you can see, hopefully you can see that cord attached right there. Nothing wrapped around to the back. I just trimmed the ends once it was adhered with our glue, which works so well. Here I just clipped the corners of both the tag and the mat, punched a hole, threaded it with the gingham, and wrapped the ends around to the back. Then take a second piece of the gingham, tie a knot into it, and then add that to the top. I love that look. In fact, I have a whole YouTube playlist just about how I use ribbon on my pages if you're interested. Here you can see I glued on 3 flat back gems. And then there's the half of the die cut right there. On the facing page, I've got the other charm here topped with the paper cord. The paper cord running across here with another little knot that I made out of it. And then the attachment of 3, again, a set of 3 of those little flat back rhinestones. So that is layout 5 and 6. Now I'm going to take the base of page 5, pick that up, slide it on over, pick this up, slide it over, and now I should be able to turn back in my instructions 1 page to the bottom of page 3. Here we go. I will now take my amazing accordion pocket file, and I have this large sheet. Just going to grab that out of there and get it out of my way. That's going to go on the right side of the page. And then there's a narrower piece of that same pattern that I'm going to add to the bottom. It leaves this gap right in the middle here. So to fill that gap, I'm going to be using this strip, and then I'm going to add a little contrast above and below it with these 1/4 inch dark aqua pieces. When I attach these, I make sure this is attached first. I run the nozzle of my needle-tipped glue applicator along it, and then bring the paper to the glue. Goes a lot faster that way. On the left side, find the 2 dark aqua mats. They need to be, yeah, they're all that same size. And then I'm going to put the dark brown in between them to make a nice row here. And then to the left of the row, I'll add the vertical strip and once again do my little fake out. It looks like it's matted with a full sheet of paper, but it's really just those narrow strips. On the right side is the remaining dark aqua nested with the brown mat here. And then we have 2 rectangles. Once you fussy cut these little tabs, or if you want to skip the fussy cutting, you could do that too. Those are going to go here. I inked the edges with brown just in case there was any white visible. Then in the lower right corner, I did cut this with a die cut, punched a hole in the top, added some ribbon, and then I added this little laser cut sunflower and this guy right in here. This piece was fussy cut and then added here along with one of these sunflowers. And again, just put in your trimmer, cut off a straight edge so you can align this right with the edge of the paper. Looks really sweet. I'll show you in just a moment how that turned out. So on the finished page here, on the right side, you can see my fussy cut tabs. Those are going to be really nice if you decide to adapt the kit and turn it into a book or something. Over here is that laser cut nested kind of behind this journaling prompt. Here I looped some of the ribbon, one piece of ribbon, and then added a second piece to the top. You'll get the idea on that trick. And then a set of 3 flat back rhinestones there. On the facing page, you can see my lineup here. Everything's nice and straight. I always use my grid ruler to line everything up. And then my 3, 4, 5 little gems placed here. This was attached with foam adhesive circles. Here you can see the straight cut on the edge and just added that with my bookbinding glue. And then this was added with the bookbinding glue as well after I added some of that paper cord to the top of the charm. With these items placed, I'm going to pick up the light aqua and slide it over. Pick up the large sunflower print, slide it over. I need to empty pocket 1 and 2 of my organizer here. And let's finish our last pair of pages. The print is going to go up on the top, and then we're going to do some contrast here. So we'll start with that narrow strip of brown, and then follow that with one of those dark aquas nested with our border. On the right side of this page, before we proceed here, I'm just going to have you find your larger yellow. That kind of carries through the yellow from the other side, and then nest it with the smaller pair of the 2 brown pieces. You're going to add the other long dark aqua strip vertically, kind of to balance things out here. You also have this narrow strip. It was going to be a scrap, but I ended up using it. Then over here, you're going to find a dark aqua rectangle that nests with Forever Chasing the Sun. And I kind of positioned that so that the title went right in alignment with the border strip there. Then this piece is going to go right below that. The other brown will be just a little higher, so it kind of puzzles in nicely. You're going to cut this in half, use one half tucked along the edge of this, and the other half tucked along the edge of that. There should be a journaling prompt that you can nest with one of the pieces of brown. Clip those corners, do with it as you wish. You're going to find a Ready Set Glow that has a dark aqua to nest with it. Finally, 2 brown squares that are going to get the Love and Shine. If you want to put those there, you can put them anywhere. I just put them there on their sides. You could have them coming out the top, whatever you want. And you still have room. You can still add a couple of extra photos if you feel like you have a lot of photos you want to put on these pages. Remember, photos are always your #1. I'll show you those finished pages with all the touches. Here I did quite a bit down here in the lower right corner. I added the charm with the cord. I wrapped this with the gingham and then tied a bow onto it, and then 3 flat back gems. Reflecting that on the other page, I got my 3 flat back gems, once again wrapped and then tied on the gingham ribbon. Here's half and half of the sunflower. Over here, all I did was punch a hole, threaded it with that beautiful granulated ribbon, and just tied the ends, or I taped the ends to the back. At this point, you can go back and start, grab your adhesive, finish the pages, and then add your photos. Or if you want, you can stack this, add your instructions so you know what's there, add any, unplaced embellishments or ribbons and things. And then the next time you want to get together with friends to scrapbook, or if you have a scheduled crop event, you bring your prepared page to this point because all of the mental acrobatics are behind you. You've done all the hard work. And then you can spend time chatting with your friends, just, happily adhering away, getting your pages put together. And then you bring to your crop a big brick of photos that you want to scrapbook and add them to your pages. And I encourage you to do it in that order if you haven't tried our method to this point. You're going to be amazed at how efficient it is. That's how we do it here at Club Scrap. That's how hundreds of our Club Scrap members are doing it, and it really works for them. It eliminates all that indecision and all the time that you spend deliberating over what to put with your photos. Just bring your photos to these completed pages. It is like magic. So you can have that magic every month. If you're not already a member of Club Scrap, go ahead and give us a try. Subscribe. You'll save $8 on kits, and you can skip or quit at any time. The other cool part is that even if you're not a member, anyone can shop at Club Scrap. Make sure you hit that like button and leave me a comment. It really helps our channel get spread far and wide on the YouTube universe. So I look forward to seeing you soon in another Club Scrap workshop. Thanks for joining me.